But that was, let's see, Scott, probably about 8 years ago. And we've now grown that to over 25 million.
Oh.
Yeah, it's doing well. And so many kids, you know, we get the cards back every year. You know, you'll read these cards from a kid who said, I wanted to be a nurse and I knew I could never be a nurse until you came to my aid. And we think, you know, now that young man or young woman is a nurse and they're giving back by providing, you know, needed services to those of us that need it. I mean, it's just, it makes you feel so good to see this.
So wait a minute. So what I'm hearing is, Doug, we need to make more assignments to Judge Turner over there.
Listen, the thing pretty good is hiring somebody to do the work. I'm not very good at doing it.
Someone's got to be the idea man.
Yeah.
You know, a long time ago, my entire higher education is funded by scholarship, 100% of it, from community college to graduate school. And when I asked why I was chosen, they said I was the only student that applied that was in the field of history. So I was the only person from the discipline, and they thought it was important to represent. So,
well, that's
doing the good work.
Of course, you'll take it any way you can get it. You know what I'm saying? kind of like the two guys talking, and the guy said, well, there was only 2 in my certain class in college, and he said, and I finished second, and his mother was saying, well, you crazy thing, but think about the other guy. Said he finished next to last. He said, you know, I never thought of it that way. So but no, you know, hey, and I wish we had more people that had interest in history. I just, you know, it bothers me that we're not placing much emphasis on it in high school now, like we used to. And I just hope we haven't lost a generation of people who love it.
That high school history teacher is critical. I mean, if you had a dynamic high school history teacher, you love history. And if you had someone that just made you memorize dates and made it tedious, you don't love history.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true.
Nothing wrong with 1066.
Battle of Hastings. Battle of Hastings.
Very good. There you go.
Or if you don't see yourself in those lessons, if you skip over so much of a certain portion of the classroom's history and they don't see themselves in that history, they pay a lot less attention.
Good point.
I was in the courtroom doing some things yesterday, and a gentleman stopped by. He and his son's probably maybe 10 years old. I'm not sure if he's quite that old, maybe 9. But anyhow, they stopped in, and so we chatted for a minute. His dad was a really good baseball player. In fact, he played in the minor leagues for a while, and then finally decided, I'm not going to go beyond the minor leagues, so I'm just coming back home. So he came back home here and became our high school baseball coach for a few years. But anyhow, his son was there, and I asked his son, I said, do you like baseball? Are you going to be a ball player too? And he said, no, I don't. I like history. And I said, oh, you do? And he started telling me about, I like studying the presidents. And I thought, when he told me that, I thought, well, he's going to start talking about Lincoln, you know, because, hey, here he's in Lincoln's back door. But no, he wanted to tell me about Franklin Roosevelt. And he spent probably 15 minutes telling me all about Franklin Roosevelt. And he had been to, the Roosevelt estate, and he had studied this and he had read that. And I'm trying to think of where they went. They went somewhere and on their vacation. And while there, he told me, he said, and I got to stand on the very spot where Franklin Roosevelt gave his speech. And he was just, and I thought, this is so exciting for this young kid to be so, really, really excited about history and learning more. And his dad said, yeah, I can tell where this kid's going to end up. He's going to end up either teaching history or being a historian of some type, which is great. He loves it. So I told him, I said, stick with it. Keep after it.
We never looked better, did we? We all looked so good in our photos, images. Yay.
And we only have to look good from here up just about. See, we don't. Well, I would happen to be watching the news that morning that the guy was giving the news report, and somehow the camera panned real quick, and he was sitting there and he had a shirt and jacket on and he was in his underwear.
I'll remind everybody too, as we get ready to get started here, that we are, to help be more accessible to our members and to anybody that wanted to tune in, we are streaming our meeting live on the KHS YouTube channel. So if you're not wearing pants, Judge Turner, don't stand up.
No, I do have pants. Yeah, I'm here in the courthouse and I had to wear them to get in the door, so I'm in good shape. So I've got everything here with me. Okay, Scott. Scott, were we scheduled to start at 1 today?
At 1, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I know we still probably have some people. I see a few coming online, but let's see if we can call our roll and see if we have a quorum to conduct business. Hopefully so. I think Teresa with us. I'm sure you are.
I'm here.
Okay, Teresa. I'm going to call the roll, Teresa, and can you check them off your list, or do you wish me to do that?
I am checking them off, and those that are calling in by telephone, we will need you to unmute and just state your name at the end so that I know that you're here.
Okay. So I will go through the roll call, and those of you that can answer here, please do so that we can make sure we record you're in attendance. Macaulay Adams. Anthony Apro.
I'm here.
Mindy Barfield. Becky Bowling.
Here.
Jennifer Brown. Tressa Brown.
Here.
Emmanuel Kalk. Coleman Eldridge. Mary Hammond.
Here.
David Lee.
Here.
Terry Manuel. Sheila Mason.
Here.
Mark Nykirk.
Here.
Wayne Ongst.
Here.
Geneva Paris.
Here.
Tip Richmond.
Here.
Julie Skoski. Kevin Smith. Laura Bubbles. Cynthia Torp. I am here. John Wolford.
Here.
There you are. Okay. We also have some guests with us we would like to welcome. We have Frank Gimley here, and we also have Secretary Barry. Have you been able to join us, Secretary? Okay, maybe not yet, but he does plan to try to join us during the meeting. So we hope he will be able to be a part of it. We also, I think, may have some guests with us from the foundation. And I was able to attend the foundation meeting this morning via Zoom, and a quite informative meeting. Those folks do a tremendous job. We need to give a big pat on the back to Doug and David Smith and everyone that in that organization that has worked so hard to raise funds. And without them, we certainly could not be here. We could not be operating. And again, their love of history and their ability to reach out to those who also love history and to financially support us have been tremendous. And we appreciate it so much for the efforts they put forth. Okay, the minutes of the April.
Tommy,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
do need to let you know you do have a quorum, and Cynthia Torp is now logging in.
Okay, great. We do have a quorum, so we can conduct our business. That is great. Okay, the minutes of the April 17th board meeting were distributed to all of you. I'm fortunate I'm operating on 2 different computers here. One that is filming me and I'm on Zoom. The other, I've got all the documents in front of me, so it works quite well. Those were emailed to you, and I would ask if you have any additions or corrections to the minutes that were submitted to you. If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So move.
Okay, we have a motion from David Lee. Is there a
I'll
second? Okay, was that Tony Apro?
Yes, it was.
Okay, Tony, there you go. I did not see you, but I thought I recognized your voice, so that's good. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the motion? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, we will move on now to some KHS reports, and we will begin first with Scott Albee and his report from the executive director. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to cover several different things, and appreciate everybody's patience as we go through these Zoom meetings and not being able to do our committee meetings. So we're going to try to cover a lot of ground real quickly through the executive director's report. And then I'm anxious to turn it over to the leadership team. So I'll ask each of them to kind of chime in. We've got a new member of the leadership team. I'm scanning my thing. I don't see him on here yet, though. So hopefully we get, oh, there he is. Thank you. Get everybody up to speed. So I wanted to kind of give you a couple of updates since we've last talked just from the broader organizational perspective. We opened on June 8th, thanks to an internal team led by our new deputy director, Jessica Stavros. It was a pretty stressful moment. I can't even remember if at our last meeting, I felt like, yeah, it'll be sometime in July before we opened, but we got a request to open quicker, and we met the challenge and was very happy because it taught us a lot about our organization and the operations. It's amazing, and I'm sure some of you that are going through the same thing for your businesses and your places of work, the things you have to think of to be able to open in such a safe environment. So, first priority for us was making sure that our staff is working in a safe environment, and then that our visitors were being welcomed into a safe environment. And just for some generalized, and I think I sent a lot of information out to you all, but in general, it was really nice. We had the Department of Public, or we had Emergency Management come here and actually review our plan. And that was very affirming to be able to sit there and, all these differences in interpretation of how that was going to work. So really excited that we got that up and going. We continue to adjust and modify programming, and the teams are going to talk more about that as they go through their reports in response to working in this quarantine environment. Our foot traffic isn't bad, obviously not what we would hope it could be given the situation, but the moves on virtual programming has really paid some big dividends. If you recall our last meeting, we had talked and laid out an awareness campaign and a membership push, and those are paying off big dividends as we see our face getting out there a lot more often. We did not only the Not Derby Day special, but we have a whole variety of things, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder on talking about those. But if you haven't caught us on our virtual programming or on our news partnerships, our TV partnerships, we're really out there right now. So that's great. I wanted to give you a quick update on the strategic plan. When we left off a couple meetings ago, we were charged with coming up with some tactics and measurable outcomes for our strategic plan. Well, I'm here to report that those kind of got thrown off kilter. But I will say this, that we have met, the leadership team actually met in early March and had started making some progress down that route. During the quarantine and in our response to COVID, our mission has not changed. I think I said that last meeting. And what we're doing has not changed. How we're going to get it done is changing. We are reevaluating what those metrics and tactics are going to be to meet our strategic goals. I will say that we have agreed upon a multi-year plan taking us out to 2026. And it's obviously going to be flexible, but we're trying to think about what thematic focuses we should hit on as we move towards the semi-quincentennial for the US 250, what it will be the Kentucky Historical Society's role within that, and should there be a logical sequence of thematic programming that we do. We also felt it was important to stay with civic action for this year and into next year. We have a lot of research that we've already had done and programming that we were not able to implement for the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, but it still would apply to a lot of the work that we want to do going forward in the next year. For this year, I think it's safe to say, and again, we're still kind of evaluating this, but it's safe to say that we're seeing success and feel our primary focus should be on Kentucky military history. We have some great opportunities there to work with the Military History Museum and get that committee activated through this board, and we'll talk more about that later. Kentucky ancestors, not just the town hall program, but literally family history and genealogy of Kentucky. We've been able to serve that group really, really well during the course of the pandemic and in virtual programming, and think that would be a good, strong push for us to make throughout the year. National History Day and teacher programming. Again, two huge success pieces that have happened. Our team under Jody's leadership and with and Jennifer Despinette pivoted and conducted the entire National History Day program virtually. And we're fortunate to have two of our students made it to the national finals. Not a common thing for us. So kudos to Jennifer for being able to provide the support and make that possible. And we were also seen as a leader nationally on the way we conducted the program. And Jennifer's being consulted about how she did it. You guys will have to stop me. I told my team they got 5 minutes. I'm going to take liberty to go a little bit longer. One of the things that our chapter did that most chapters didn't do was actually give the participants feedback on their projects. So again, it's not about a competition, but it's about how do we make this better? How do we give these kids a great experience in Kentucky history and help them move up, not just up the competition ladder, but how to figure out how to be better communicators, to be better members of better citizens. And virtually, we were able to use our judges to give these students feedbacks on their projects. Most places didn't do that. It was just literally you presented their project and they got ranked and scored. So kudos to them for doing that. I mentioned already that we would stay with civic action and voting rights through the year. And then we need to look at markers. And that's a really big discussion for us here, because obviously with the conversations surrounding monuments and memorials, we have some 400 Civil War related markers out of the 2,500 that we have. Obviously some of them were posted some time ago, back in the 50s and 60s. They have language that could be objectionable. And so we need to find a system to review and how we want to address those markers, as well as how do we set the right platform for installing markers going forward. I'm gonna pause if there's any questions about the things I've mentioned so far.
Hey, Scott, I'd just like to add, I was part of the History Day, and I'm going to tell you, I found it to be better organized than it had been in previous years. And to be able to give the feedback in a concise manner via technology was a lot easier than handwriting documents and so forth. So kudos to the team that put that off. It was phenomenal.
Well, thank you.
Tony, I'll pass that along to Jennifer. Thank you
Please
very
do.
Two other quick broad organizational things that are kind of related is we did issue an organizational statement in response to the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement. We actually had the protest march that started on the Old State Capitol lawn here in Frankfort and marched up to the Capitol. Went right past my window. Very moving and emotional day to see such a well-organized and powerful moment to happen. But on multiple levels, I felt it was important that the Kentucky Historical Society make some sort of acknowledgement to our role and what Kentucky history's role needs to be in the protests, and acknowledging that we have failed in some instances to recognize all people's history. But yet that is still our mission, that we educate and engage through Kentucky history for all people, not just the popular history or the areas that are easiest to get to, and that we should reaffirm our commitment to being a place for all Kentuckians. It was really well received. In fact, we received some national recognition and have been asked to help write an article for the American Association for State and Local History. So I have to give a shout out to our team, particularly Stuart, who really lined the article up really well, to the statement up really well to get out there. If you didn't see it, I'm happy to send it to you, but it really talked about the fact that we can be inspired by an individual story to look at our broader, all-encompassing Kentucky history.
God, this is Tip Richmond. Where would we have read that or seen it?
It was, and I'm kind of looking at the team. I believe we emailed that out to, did it go out to members? And I know it got posted on a lot of social media connections.
Well, can you send it to me? Because I don't recall seeing that.
I'll be happy to do that. Yep.
Thank you.
The last thing I wanted to talk about in my general overview was, if you didn't catch it too, we were fortunate to have Governor Beshear here in the Kentucky History Center for 2 weeks of briefings. And during those 2 weeks, it was, this has been part of our larger effort that we wanted to engage the governor as the chancellor of the Historical Society. And just so happened that we were working on that prior to the pandemic. But then for him to come down and actually use us as the backdrop for the briefings was really great. Plus, it reaffirmed his commitment to Kentucky history. So he signed the Juneteenth proclamation here. Now, we didn't know that was going to happen. His staff walked in and told us. And so immediately when we were in the Hall of Governors, I went and spoke to the governor and just said, any chance I can have anything from this proclamation signing when you get done? This is a pretty historic moment for us. And not to scoop our friends over at KDLA, but they ended up letting us hang on to the proclamation itself. The team went into quick action. We had it on display in Hall of Governors through the weekend. And he also made sure that we got the pen that he signed it with, which was really cool. From a history collecting nerd, we actually made sure that we preserved the jacket to where he scribbled on it to make sure the ink was going to come out. So really big moment for us, but again, affirms his commitment. And I think we saw a huge bump in people paying attention. We'll raise the awareness of the Kentucky Historical Society, have the governor do his briefing from here. Then the following week and a day, he conducted the briefings from the old state capitol. And that was no small feat. We got him down there. We have an HVAC project going on. It was hot, but yet they stayed committed to transmitting from there. And you can tell he felt he was doing some very historic moment things, and what a place to be able to do that from in the House chamber of the old state capitol. We had to do some quick water runs because like I said, it was hot, and for some reason they never remembered to bring him water. So we were fortunate to have him here for those. So again, before I go into the other reports I wanted to make, I'll take a pause and take any questions if there's anything. Well, hopefully we'll be able to continue to leverage that relationship with the governor. I was called, just so you all know, when they were removing the Jefferson Davis statue from the rotunda, they did find some artifacts down in the base, and it was kind of ironic. I was sitting on my couch in the living room, texting with friends, watching it happen on their live stream of it, and I got a call to come down when they found the artifacts. So we actually saw them taking them out. We're like, what is that? What's going on down there? And next thing I know, my phone rings. Hey, we need you to come down here. So I ran down there, and so KHS was able to offer some support. We actually have the artifacts here. I convinced them that we would be the best repository. We don't own them. It's still the historic properties items, but we wanted to make sure that they were preserved and conserved in the proper environment. So we have them here, but again, looking forward to continuing that relationship with the governor's office and taking our role. Emailed out to you was a membership report, and I just kind of wanted to quickly go over that. We want to start being better at tracking how we're doing membership. All this awareness and raising awareness is all aimed at helping us develop more members, not because we want to raise more money and have more benefits for individuals or family members who visit, but literally, how do you show your support for Kentucky history? And it's by becoming a member of the Kentucky Historical Society. So on this membership report right now, you see that we have a total of 1,505 that is actually up from our last report that we made to you. And that's all thanks to the awareness campaign that we've been doing. And also just at the end of almost everything we do now, our team reminds people that you can become a member of the Kentucky Historical Society. So we're going to start continuing this effort and start updating you on how we're looking on our membership. Any questions about our membership report? All right, so the next report I wanted to go to was our personnel report. And I think it's labeled personnel update report. We did have one promotion since then. Our Kentucky History Advocate, Stuart Sanders, is now leading the Research and Collections Department. Stuart was a candidate for our Deputy Director position, and many of you said, you know, if you need to be looking at Stuart as a leadership role here at the Historical Society. And so he's hit the ground running. I'll let him comment when he gives his report. We did unfortunately have one termination. Louise Jones is no longer working with us. We have a couple contract changes. I asked Teresa to add these in. Austin Zinkel and Chris Leningham are actually foundation employees, but they're working on the register of the Kentucky Historical Society. But they're part of our team, right? So they're all part of how we're trying to work. But I also want to draw your attention to our current vacancies. And this is a real list. We're going to talk about this later. We are still operating without a director of finance and operations, without a registrar, without multiple part-time visitor services associates that would be helping us to be open, basically. We don't have a history mobile coordinator, and I honestly don't have an intention of filling that, and we'll talk more about that later. We are in the need of a technology consultant. We are started moving a lot of things online. Jessica and team worked really hard to get us online payments, something we didn't have, so that we can be able to take ticketing and things safely at the front desk. A museum store manager. We want to move to having things online for the museum store, and so we need management for that. But I've also listed 3 other positions that just really, as we've been going through the years since 2010, we are just missing these kind of specialized people to help us work through Kentucky history, to help us with military history, to help us with telling the stories of diverse communities, and to think about how we are archiving digital history. So again, nothing that we're going to be able to address in the short term, but I need to start laying the groundwork that we need to think about how we build that capacity for those great pieces. And then the last thing I wanted to mention on there was the volunteer hours. Despite the fact that we haven't had volunteers on site, these are virtual volunteer hours. So people are still logging in and working to help us process collections and just do general work for KHS. So not as huge. I think we normally average somewhere around the thousands of hours, but still we have a significant number of people that we're engaging to work with us on volunteers. Any questions about the personnel report? Something I failed to mention is if you look at the second page or backside, if you printed it out, I just wanted to give you a sense of, at one point back in 2009, we had over 100 employees here at KHS. Right now we're at 45. So this is what I'm saying. At some point we have to figure out, and I know it's not going to be easy to do in this current environment, but somehow we have to reverse that trend because we haven't slowed down in the services that we provide.
I got a question on your finance director. Have you had applicants?
If you remember, Anthony, we did that unsuccessful search, and the group advised, and this was literally, I think, right before we hit the shutdown, that we probably need to do a targeted search, and because we were just about to do that when March hit, and we've just put a hold on all hiring until we figured out what was going on.
I have a question.
Yep.
I'm looking at all those open positions, and I know how much you need the finance director. So when are you planning to open searches for any of those?
Right now, there's a general hiring freeze in the state.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm a little apprehensive to move on any of them. And I mean, we have some latitude as a non-merit agency to do some hiring. But I think the reality is we're facing a budget cut, and I just don't know where those would come from. I think it's a priority to have that director of finance. I think it's a priority for us to have that registrar position.
Right.
So if we can figure out a way that we can bring in some of those positions, but again, right now, the governor's talking anywhere between a 16 to 29% budget cut, which is just catastrophic. I don't even know how we would do it. So I'm a little apprehensive to make a commitment on staffing until we kind of know what that's going to look like.
All right, thank you.
Does this list represent a priority? I mean,
It does, for the most part. The top few positions are probably what I would argue are our highest priority positions. If there's questions about the registrar one, I can't tell you, not having Beth Carter in that position and what it does for the team. A registrar really organizes, and some of you know this, just really organizes and keeps control of the collection and the work that the curators and other staff are doing in the collection. We're running without a registrar. And so it would probably be in our best interest to get that person back up to speed and running for the betterment of the collection. And Judge Turner and group, I just got a text from Secretary Berry. He is on the call. He is just by phone though, and no video.
Okay, great. Welcome, Secretary Berry. Thank you for joining us. Okay,
Great
Scott,
question.
I was just going to say you have additional.
And the last one I wanted to give you, and hopefully I'll make this made it briefer. You should have received a FY20 fourth quarter financial report. I also provided a lengthy notes page to kind of answer any questions that might arise from that. The good news was we ended fairly on budget. The main way we ended up making that budget work was literally not filling those vacancies. As soon as the fourth quarter, or as soon as the quarantine hit, we immediately ceased some contract workers that we had on staff, and we did not hire any of the seasonal people. We actually had people that were just about to start, and we pulled the plug on all those. So for the most part, we realized our savings. I think it was to the tune of almost $200,000, if not more, just on the personnel numbers. That's what allowed us to make it. But we also had significant reduction. If you've been with us for a while, you know that the fourth quarter is our greatest opportunity for revenue because of school field trips and programs, but it's also our highest expense area too. And a lot of those expenses were cut because we didn't have those to correspond with the school programming. Is there any need for me to go over any more of that report in detail? If not, then I'm going to ask Doug High if you'll give us a brief update on the work of the foundation.
Okay, Scott, thanks. Tommy, thanks for having me. And as he mentioned at the top, we had a great meeting this morning with the foundation, with your foundation. And they did vote to approve the FY21 budget, which is right in lockstep with the support that Scott has requested. So we're very pleased to be able to do that. And you know, it is a heavy lift, especially in rough waters right now. I'm going to quote our consultant, whose counsel means so much to us, Jessica Coleman Hastings. She said, "Strategy is a moving target," and boy, isn't that the truth. But I do want to share with you some great news. We did a end of fiscal year push for donation at the right in July, and we assembled a very careful list of 3,000 individuals to mail to, and it exceeded our expectations. We had a 6.5% response rate to that 3,000 mailing unit with 182 individual donations. And as of the 10th, we've gone over $15,000 in brand new donation, which in these difficult times, I think is fantastic. That was an average cost to us per gift of $11 and some change. The average gift, if you're interested, is $79, and we are trending about $5,000 over our goal from the same mailer last year. So we're very pleased, and I give credit to the careful composition of the letter. We're treading very lightly in our ask right now. You have to. There are a lot of people hurting, as we know, and history and the pursuit of history might not be at the very top right now, but we also can make the argument that there's never been a more important time for the pursuit of history, for education from history. What else is going for us? We have an incredible donor group, a faithful following, and we want to increase that. We want to increase that pool, obviously, and we are. But our asks, whether it's in sponsorship, whether it's in major gifts, or membership moving forward, we're going to see all that messaging very, very carefully composed, respectful, humility. But we do have a lot to offer, and in many ways, as Scott has illustrated to you, our reach, despite not having the foot traffic we normally do, our reach has never been greater, because we made that quick pivot, and we were already well positioned to lean on our virtual tours, to lean on our television broadcast products that we've been developing this past year. And we want to continue to build those relationships. We want to continue to build our relationship with KET. When they get ready to launch our town hall broadcast, hopefully this fall, it's in the approval process right now. That's going to be a tremendous statewide platform for us. A couple other highlights from the meeting I could share with you. Our Kentucky History Treasures series at the foundation fronts. We launched weekly last week, Tuesday, July 14th on WHAS in Louisville, which is a huge, huge moment for us. I mean, that's the 48th largest television market in the country, and a powerhouse station, as you know. And they conducted a 10-minute interview with me and went right into the first History Treasures segment. And they're going to run that every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. on Great Day Live for the next 2 years. So this is fantastic. We're also going to have WHAS come out to do a kind of an as live remote early next week to interview Scott, and he's going to talk a lot about our current initiatives and the fact that we're open for business, and we're taking every precaution to ensure your safety. So that'll be tremendous. And we've also set up a new exhibit on our museum floor to showcase all the items from the Kentucky History Treasures TV series that are normally in storage. So we're very excited to unveil that on WHAS next week. Our relationship in Lexington continues on WTVQ ABC 36 with their Sunday night 11 p.m. newscast, their highest rated newscast, and then Monday at 9 a.m. on Good Day Kentucky. And I'm also hoping to pick up in the next several months a Paducah television broadcast partner and a Bowling Green partner. So once we do that, we will we'll be able to say we have a television network, statewide television network for the Kentucky Historical Society. So I'm really pleased with that. A couple other quick announcements too. You might recall that we were going to go ahead and continue on with the History Half Marathon, but we had a very different financial footprint with it. We were letting an outside company organize it, manage it completely with zero expense on our end. We were going to retain a sponsorship for it, and they were going to run that October 17th, but now obviously that's in great peril. They haven't canceled it yet, but they most likely will. So we're going to try to retain that sponsorship, those sponsorship dollars, move them off onto another property. We're talking about that right now. Kentucky Ancestors Town Hall broadcast on KET. I've mentioned that, and we've got high hopes there. retaining a sponsorship for Candlelight and Holiday Train doesn't look like that's going to be possible this year. We're not going to be able to do the Holiday Train this year, unfortunately, for a number of reasons. We don't know what Candlelight's going to look like. We don't know what foot traffic's going to look like. We don't know, we couldn't retain our vendor for the Holiday Trains. They weren't able to give us enough dates to make it really kind of worthwhile. The team is working on trying to come up with another plan, another footprint for the holiday season. And once that goes into place, once we find out what we can and can't do with Frankfort, what Candlelight's going to look like this year, we'll try to find some sponsors for it. In terms of new projects, this is my opinion, and we put this out this morning, and I want you all to chew on this too. In my opinion, our very best bet for fundraising, for sponsorship dollars, and Scott mentioned this earlier, is for us to really maximize what we already have, a tremendous archive of Kentucky military veteran stories, uniforms, equipment. We have it all here. And what a treasure we have with the Kentucky Military History Museum. And unfortunately, because of staffing, because of budgets, it's just not been able to be actualized as it should. So the leadership team has been challenged to really try to wrap our minds around how we can maximize these resources in 2021. And from a foundation perspective, especially in these difficult times of fundraising, I have a much greater chance of success if we are raising money to promote Kentucky military veteran stories. So for a lot of reasons, I think we all need to kind of put on our thinking cap about how we can utilize our resources for Kentucky military and promoting our Kentucky military veterans and honoring that valor that has gone on for so long. I should mention too, I took a $10,000 donation specifically designated toward Kentucky military stories through KHS. So we want to build on that. I'm confident we can find money for that. We've talked to you all about the Triple Crown Trail in past meetings. It's still a very viable product and something that we want to launch, but unfortunately with travel and tourism being in the state it's in, we kind of hit the pause button on that, obviously. We're looking at a phased one, kind of a build-in approach to approaching each one of the farms on the trail, seeing if we can get a historic marker up there, hoping that they can earmark their budgets for us to roll this out proper in 2021. But as of right now, even our partners that we were going to partner with on this are all travel tourism based, and they're hurting. So we are in a pause on that, but far from over. And Scott mentioned that the focus continues on trying to stand up a voting civics exhibition for next year, and that's something that obviously the foundation will get behind in terms of grants, in terms of sponsorships, and looking forward to that. That's just a quick snapshot. Does anyone have any questions for me on the foundation front?
Well, Doug, that's a fantastic report. And I tell you, I'm so excited to hear about the work with the media outlets, the TV stations, and their willingness to team up. I mean, that's fantastic. What would exposure like that cost us if we had to just go buy it? We couldn't afford it.
Tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, the amount of airtime we're receiving and the properties that we're receiving them in and network affiliated newscasts, it's off the charts. I'm thrilled that they see the value in our content. I mean, that's really what this is about. And we're excited too about this emerging relationship with KET as well. So, and it couldn't be at a better time. I mean, because we've got to play to our strengths, and with foot traffic and our ability to gather around artifacts, around items, we've got to lean into the virtual tours. We've got to lean into the broadcast components we have and find sponsorship for them.
Sure. Absolutely fantastic. Well, we appreciate you utilizing your prior career experiences, and I'm sure they opened a lot of doors to be able to make this happen, and we appreciate that very much.
No, thanks. Appreciate
Thank you.
it, Tommy.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no questions for Doug, we'll move on then. And the next person I want to introduce is a new member for us today. Jessica Stavros has joined the KHS as Deputy Director. And Jessica, we welcome you and we thank you for being a part of the team. And we'll give you the floor now to discuss operations and marketing communications.
Thank you, Tommy. It's really exciting to be here. Glad to see smiling faces all the way around. So as Tommy mentioned, yes, operations and the communications team are under my purview. So I'll start with just kind of a quick overview of our reopening. We did open on June 8th, as you heard, one of the first in the state to open. So we thought we'd go ahead and blaze the trail for everyone else to join in. And we've had a pretty good response. We've had about 350 visitors since opening. It's about half of what it was last year, but that's of course without any groups or field trips or rentals or anything like that. So as just foot traffic coming in the door, we're really proud that that many people want to spend their time out of their homes and in here with us. So as Scott mentioned, we were approved, our plan was approved by our health professionals and partners in Franklin County. And we even received a Yelp review on how safe visitors felt. So that really made us feel pretty good that we were doing the right thing. We also have daily trainings for employees that are coming back into the building that may have not been here before. So we're really just trying to make this part of our new way of business. I should also mention about 20% of our visitorship have been active members. And the most popular items that they're looking at are the Kentucky History Treasures exhibited in the Kentucky Journey Gallery. So they are really enjoying walking in, shopping in the store, using the library, of course, and then going through Kentucky Journey to see a Kentucky Treasures exhibit. So it's really working to get people in the building. We are slated to reopen the old state capitol and the Military History Museum, hopefully, fingers crossed, on August 1st. I have to give a shout out to the learning team for managing the schedule for the old state capitol and our visitor services team for handling the Kentucky Military History Museum, both of which were really used a lot of volunteers. So not only being short-staffed, we've really taken on a lot of added responsibility to make sure we can be open, all three buildings on the campus, to the public here pretty soon. Scott also mentioned one of the proud accomplishments in the last quarter is our new collaboration with Kentucky Interactive, and they are an online payment system. We were already under contract with them as part of our agency with the state, but they can take payments for summer camps, for programming, but also admission. So it allows for contactless transactions if the visitor wishes, but also it just makes it easier to transact money. And next up on that is getting the museum store online. We're pairing product with virtual tours, programming, highlighting different things throughout the month. So we're hoping that that will really help move us forward in that way. Virtual experiences continue to be a good success. Our Tuesdays at 1 o'clock are Facebook Live. Then we also have trivia nights on third Thursday of the month. Those are going really well. We're revamping our blog series and doing a lot of work to get more of a comprehensive product to our members and guests and stakeholders on all of the wonderful things we're doing. So stay tuned for your new episode of the KHS Insider, our monthly newsletter, which will compile all of these different departments into one seamless newsletter. So we won't inundate your mailboxes each week with different mailings. The last thing I would say is really Oh, our communications team has also joined forces with the foundation to work on membership and awareness as part of the awareness campaign. So we're really trying to use our resources to the best of our ability to do the best work in a more cohesive and collaborative way. So that's really exciting to be on Doug's side there to help move our membership forward. And then lastly, I'll say we have recently joined an organization as an anchor partner called Made by Us. It is through the Smithsonian Institution, and it is a national collaborative of history and civic organizations. And it's designed to bring history to younger generations in innovative and really meaningful ways. And the younger generations are really empowered and in action more than I've seen in my lifetime. So it's really nice to see us be intentional in these discussions about race or monuments or marginalized history or civic action and other really timely topics. So our team is working for all of those goals. I don't think I missed anything, Scott, did I? The end.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Jessica? Okay, Jessica, thank you so much. Go ahead.
You know, I'll also say one more thing. I just want to make it really clear because I'm really proud of this. We've had no contentious visitors in our building. So we have had a very smooth and supportive culture outside. People do feel safe and welcome here. And we've had no problems with any of the protective guidelines in place. So just wanted to let you all know that.
It's great. It's great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. And again, welcome to the team. Next, we have a report on museum programs, and Jody Lewis is here with us for that. Jody.
Thank you. I would go back to what Scott said about, you know, the frustration that we felt with losing so much of the bulk of our revenue. We were on target through reservations to absolutely demolish previous year's income for our school programs, our on-site field trips. We lost about 2/3 of the income that we would have earned last year. So that was very frustrating for us because we all felt so good about where 2020 was going. However, we've pivoted, and I won't reiterate everything that other folks have said, but I've been really so proud of our team for being creative and competent, learning a new way of doing things, and really excelling at that. Our summer camp programs steadily keep increasing in attendance, and as a family comes for the first year of virtual summer camp, they decide, hey, this was terrific, and they've added on more and more camps. So that's been very encouraging. As Scott mentioned earlier, our reach has never been greater, even in our summer camps. We've had a grandmother who paid for a camper, and then all of her grandchildren, including some in Texas, were purchased summer camps. So this geographic reach, the all kinds of diversity coming in through viewership. The programming that we've come up with is innovative. I know that Wayne attended the trivia night. That was terrific. So we're very much looking forward to how we can better serve Kentuckians, how we can better increase our awareness, and of course, how we can better serve our school audience, which is our biggest audience. And so last week we sent out a survey to teachers. We have a teacher database with thousands of names and contact information, and just trying to see where they are as far as their comfort level, their preferred format, length of time, topics even, for what kinds of programming we can offer to schools this coming up school year. Scott mentioned National History Day. That was a huge roaring success. There were almost 500 students who participated from regionals through nationals. And we already mentioned that Tony was a judge. So was Mary Hammond. So thank you both for being a judge for National History Day. It is one of our signature programs, and we get so much feedback, both from the students themselves and their families and the teachers. So it's one of our crown jewels, and I was just thrilled with Jennifer Dispinette's ability. This was her first year as coordinator, and she was a little nervous to take over the program to begin with, and then to have things literally the week before the second session just go belly up. She transformed it into just a model for online contest. Because our time is short, I'm going to let John take care of the oral history. I won't crow about the Oral History Commission, but there's lots of great news there. Scott mentioned historical markers. And I would like to just say one more thing about the historical markers and community engagement team as a whole, because they've been so supportive not only of other history organizations throughout the state, providing support, technical support for reopening procedures, or when the CARES Act grants were due, they supported that as well. But also providing our own staff here. We have lots of visitor services staff who, when the building is closed to visitors, what are they going to do? And so several members of our community engagement staff were terrific in coming up with essential tasks for that team to do, whether that was cataloging oral histories, helping those be digitized, or looking at the marker program and helping to update some of that language. But then that department has also taken on 2 interns. And typically we don't like to do virtual internships. It's just not the kind of experience that we prefer to offer, because it's just not as rich as we would like to have. However, University of Kentucky reached out to us and asked us if we had an opportunity for this huge group of students who have no internship outlets. And so I'm really proud of the community engagement team for stepping up. As any of you have had an intern know, it's not an easy thing. It takes a lot of time and effort, but it's so very important to nurture the next generation of KHS staff and fans, right? So I'm very proud of that as well. I think I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'll end now and save some time.
Okay.
Okay.
Any for Jody?
And
Okay.
to piggyback on something Jody left off, her team just completed our annual Kentucky History Educators Conference. I missed that, right? You didn't say?
You did, but that's July.
Well, that's all right.
But yes, we did. Yesterday, we had, yeah, it was absolutely astounding, the number of teachers who attended this Kentucky History Educators Conference. Typically, we have somewhere between 75 and 100. We had over 300, or almost 300 people sign up for this from every corner of the state, public, private, parochial schools. And aside from a very brief glitch at the beginning of the Educators Conference, we were able to get some terrific feedback, lots and lots of accolades for Claire Gwaltney, the programs manager, and she's been doing an extraordinary job keeping so closely connected to those audiences. And that's what we've just been all bending over backwards to try to do. Who are our constituents? Who are our audiences? And how can we meet them where they are right now? Because they're all over the map.
It's been really clear how much the educators in Kentucky need trusted resources. And it's been an honor to help them through this pandemic when they need it most. So it's really great to have that relationship with them.
And it's a KHEC, since we're bringing it up now, KHEC is a wonderful time too for the teachers to be introduced to other organizations, not only Kentucky Historical Society, but we can help bring other resources to those teachers too. And there's a camaraderie that Claire was able to capture yesterday. So we're really thrilled with the way it turned out. More on that in the next report.
To what do you attribute the increased interest? How does the pandemic affect that?
That's a great question. With the history in particular, you mean, Wayne?
The conference.
Yeah. We asked that question, and the answers were coming in fast and furiously. One was cost. It was a free conference, But it wasn't just that, because almost all the attendees said they would pay for a conference like this. Several of them said it's an awkward time, they're away from school, so before they wouldn't be able to travel here in the summer because they were taking care of their own children. Others said it was just so far away. As I said, we had teachers from all parts of the state, and they said in the past they just wouldn't have traveled 3 hours or 4 hours for the conference. But we had a very high percentage. I can't recall, it was over 50%, I believe, were new attendees, and all of them all that gave an indication said they would be back again. So I think it's a number of things, Wayne, a number of things. It's encouraging though.
Great. Okay, Jody, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have one of the folks. I think when I walked into KHS as something other than just a visitor about 18 years ago, I think he was there. And you can walk in there today and he's still there. Stuart.
Yep, still here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be heading up the research and collections team. And by way of a reminder to everyone, that includes the library, the archives, the museum collection, the publications we do, and then also the Civil War Governors of Kentucky digital documentary edition. And so I've been on the job since July 1st, so I'm about 2 weeks in, and have been reviewing different policies and procedures that we have, and just meeting with all the team members, and starting to set goals and outcomes in terms of where we're heading. And as Scott mentioned, we are moving forward despite the pandemic. In our library, for example, that's open on a limited basis. We're seeing about 10 patrons at a time in that space. We do have some visitation. We're probably averaging between 5 and 10 visitors per day. This includes a group from Texas who actually came up, and also visitors from California. So believe it or not, we are getting quite a few out-of-state visitors come to the library to do research. Moreover, throughout the pandemic, we've continued to accept email requests and phone calls to our reference librarians, who are busy answering lots of questions to the public as well, or from the public as well. And so, we're still seeing a lot of volume in terms of that as the pandemic continues. Our family history programs have gone virtual for the time being, like a lot of other things we've done at KHS. And this has enabled us to really reach a broader audience, as you can imagine. The last genealogy tea and sympathy that we did, we actually had some attendees from Europe, which was wonderful. And we're hoping to continue sort of a virtual component of those programs, even when we end up having them live and at the History Center as well. Our virtual genealogical programming will also be bolstered by a $10,000 CARES Act grant that KHS received from Kentucky Humanities. And we're really hoping that that'll also help us expand our online offerings when it comes to family history programs. And as Scott mentioned, that's going to be a big priority for us moving forward. Team members also continue to process new collections. One example of that is the Honey Mondress collection that KHS recently received, and it's several items and objects from a Russian family who emigrated to Kentucky in the late 19th century. And that collection was the theme of our last virtual tour just this past Tuesday. They moved to Pendleton County, Kentucky, to Falmouth, and we had wonderful interactions with descendants of the people who own those artifacts, who are spread out from Texas to California and all over the country. And it really just enabled us to connect with the extended family of those donors in a really meaningful way. And so I encourage you to go check those out. It's on our virtual visitor page of our website. We have all our virtual tours archived there. Our curators are also working with the Perryville battlefield in Boyle County to install 4 objects for a small exhibit that they're doing. These include an overcoat, a military jacket, a medical presentation sword, and also medical epaulettes. I think they're focusing on the aftermath of Kentucky's largest battle as part of that exhibit. And we have curators there as we speak, sort of helping install those and sort of offering some guidance to the staff at the Perryville battlefield about the best way to display those objects. So we're really happy to deepen that relationship with a fellow agency in our cabinet. And, we're always happy to work with the Perryville battlefield, which in Boyle County is, of course, the preeminent heritage tourism destination. The Register of the Kentucky Historical Society continues to put out issues. Right now, Stephanie Lang, our editor, is working on putting the final touches on an issue that's going to focus on Appalachian history post 1970. That's going to press in the next week or so. In addition, the staff with the Register is continuing to work with Eastern Standard, which is a radio program that is part of WEKU, and we've had a lot of connections putting our Register authors and also advisory board members on that program, which reaches, I think, 1.5 million listeners in Central and Eastern Kentucky, Tennessee, and Southwestern Virginia on a regular basis. So we're really excited to have that platform to spread the word of what the Register is doing. Also, during April, May, and June, the Register has been offered for free via Project Muse. That's something we offered scholars during the pandemic who are doing research from home, sort of providing open access to our quarterly journal and all those articles. And it turns out more than 25,000 articles were read and downloaded during that 3-month period, which is absolutely incredible. So we're really pleased to have offered that to scholars and researchers, and hopefully that'll end up leading to more use of the Register on Project Muse in the meantime. As you can see from budget documents, the royalties we get from that is not insubstantial, and we're really happy to continue to promote that to people. The Civil War Governors of Kentucky Digital Documentary Edition continues to expand their platform to new users. We're currently working on a promotional plan to really push that out to not only Civil War historians, but also to family history researchers as well. People who are interested in Kentucky history during the Civil War era and during the middle of the 19th century will find that it's a wonderful resource to build connections between family members you might be researching, and also learn additional context about your own family history. So despite the pandemic, we're still making good progress, and I'm really pleased and honored to be leading this team. It's a great group of people who are doing amazing work, and I'm just really proud to be a part of it. So that's my quick report. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Stuart, looks like there's no questions. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on. Our agenda, we have a couple of action items we need to look at here. The first one is, of course, a very important item, and Scott has this for us. This is our fiscal year 2021 budget. And Scott, I know we'll have some discussion and talk about this because the budget is probably more of sort of an unknown right now than at any time that I've ever been involved with working on a budget for KHS. So Scott, we'll let you discuss this with us.
Yeah, and I apologize, we couldn't get these out earlier than we did to everybody, but hopefully you have a copy of our FY21 proposed KHS budget in front of you. I'm not going to go through every moment of it unless you have a lot of questions, but I do want to hit some highlights. So if you have that pulled up, and then while you're doing that, let me also give a shout out. I know he's on by phone, but to Secretary Berry and the Tourism, Arts and Heritage Cabinet. Part of the way that we managed to end on a stable note on our FY20 was some funds given to us to help cover marketing costs through the Tourism, Arts and Heritage Cabinet, the 1% transient tax money. So greatly appreciate their support and help as we go through with that. And that's going to be part of us going forward in the FY21 budget as well. So if you have that pulled up, for some of those that haven't been through this process, and I know Wayne and Sheila and those that understand the estate budgeting things, line number 1, the Kentucky State General Funds, that is what you hear talked about most, I think, for us, the General Assembly and the governor and everybody. We ended up, I didn't have in front of me, our request for our general funds was, I believe, over $7 million. By the time it was enacted, it was the $6,456,700. That's our set budget. We'll get that in an allotment from the state. The federal funds, the $252,000 I'm sorry, I'm talking down the FY21 proposed column. The $252,000, those are federal grants that we have received, and we anticipate the federal granting agencies run on the federal fiscal year, so the October to September. So we will receive, or will anticipate receiving, the $52,000 from the federal funds. Now comes the guesswork. The restricted funds going into FY21 is as good a guess as I think anybody can make. We obviously ratcheted down our anticipation of what we thought we would get in program fees. And that's all fees. That's museum programs, adult programs, school programs, all hit that line. And I think we were on track of almost 300,000 for last year. And then when it bottomed out in our fourth quarter. Rentals, we're taking a chance at saying $40,000 in that maybe by the end of by February or March. We're one of the few games in Frankfort that allow a rental space. And so if we can figure out a way to do it safely or to come up with a different business model that allow us to do some rentals, we're hoping we can meet that projection. But everything else is events and sponsorships, that's much lower, or it's on par with what we would have typically done, only because they're not being affected by on-site visitation. Fees and royalties, as Stuart mentioned, I've actually kind of downgraded it. We're seeing an increased uptake. The more people that read the register articles, the greater the fees and royalties that we have. Plus, we're seeing an uptick in paid research fees, and rights and reproductions and things like that.
Could I ask you a question, Scott, just
Sure.
Before we move further? On the rentals, I know the F2020 actual, it shows the income 48,776, but I do know of 2 or 3 large events that were canceled due to the COVID situation. What would that have been if we had been able to have all events as proposed? Would it have been closer to 80 or so?
It would have been close to 80. I think we were going to fall just short of that. That was our projection, I believe, for this year was 80, and we were just falling short. Plus, we had, again, the phones were starting to ring. Anytime that we go into a legislative session, we start seeing an uptick in people renting the facility for legislative receptions and things like that. None of that happened this year. So we lost quite a bit in that fourth quarter from those. We're being aggressive on the merchandise sales. As Jessica mentioned, we're going to go online, and we think we've talked about this before with this group. We think we have some very unique opportunities to produce some products that are very Kentucky history related, and items related to Kentucky are very popular, and so we could put those out. I've been wanting to, and I have in the past, work with some of our tourism, arts, and heritage sister agencies on product development and how we might work with them to even push some of those out. So we're going to be a little aggressive there. Local history trust funds, remains to be seen what's going to happen there, but feel pretty comfortable with that revenue number and just the way things are going. Since taxes were not due until just the other day, some of them were coming in pretty slow, but we did get a little bit of bump in April, so we feel comfortable. That will be money in and out. That's not anything that goes to our pocket. We don't get an administrative fee off of those. We literally grant every dollar back out to local history organizations. And then the balance forward, I think Linda's on the call. She might have to help me explain this, but the balance forward is literally what is a cash management feature. That's literally the amount of money that we brought over from the ending of FY20. Last year, we had a very small carry forward, in fact, a negative carry forward, and it caused a lot of problems for us to make sure that we had funding in place to be able to immediately start July off right. And again, a lot of that comes because we did our request from the foundation late in June to make sure that we had that cash balance available to move into the new fiscal year. And the last thing on the support side is the foundation funding of $335,000. That'll be money that we expected. And I think there's a second document that I sent out that kind of showed what our funding request was going to look like from the foundation. And I, believe it or not, I'm not finding mine to pull up, but it just outlines, like I said, what we think we would get from the foundation to match that number. And that covers the whole gamut from some general operating support into very specific use restricted or time restricted funds for purchasing new collections or conservation, to supporting school programming through the Libby Jones Scholarship Fund. So it's a wide variety of items that I think I outlined on the piece. I didn't see any heads nodded. Did everybody receive the summary of the KHS, the foundation funding request?
I didn't.
If not, I'll make sure we get that to you so you understand what's in that number.
I'm not sure I'm finding it. Did everyone else get it? If not, I'll just keep digging. Was it sent out?
It is. It should have been sent out, and it's a document labeled FY21 KHSF program
I'll
support.
find it. There's a lot of papers, but I'll find it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
It was sent out late yesterday afternoon.
Are there any questions I can answer then about the support side of our?
Yes, Scott, this is Tip. I have one question. Line 1 is a significant $500 increase above actual from last year. As a matter of practice, is it likely that those funds will get cut through the year, or did I hear you say that that's a fixed amount and we're guaranteed to receive that amount?
It is not guaranteed. In the past, we've been requested for cuts, and that's where they come from. What's deceptive about comparing to actual is we've received additional general funds the last few years to fund the full arc of the pension benefit. So if you look down on the expense side, you'll see that our out of that general fund dollars, 1.9 goes to employee benefits, the majority of that being the pension benefit. So we do receive additional general funds, but it's going all towards funding the state pension system.
So the 6.4 is not a good number, or it is a good number?
It's a good number for now, but until if we were to receive a budget cut, that's where we would end up taking it from.
Okay, yeah, right. That's what I said. Okay, thank you.
Scott, Mark Nykirk, I have a quick question. When you were talking about the carryover, you indicated, I thought I heard you say that last year that it was negative and that caused some problems. I guess I'm looking at it and it looks like it had, was it 38,000 in carryover in the positive, but then what's projected for or shown for actual in this fiscal year is negative 63. Am I looking at that incorrectly?
Linda, can you jump in there and help me out?
Can you hear me?
Just barely.
I don't think I'm having any luck with my microphone.
It was a little bit better there.
The 63,491 was an actual 1% budget reduction at the end of FY20. And despite that, we still carried forward the 159.5 into FY21.
So if that makes sense. I forgot that's how we had put it onto this to report it was at the end of the last month, right, Linda, we were requested to lapse some funds and that amount was 63,491.
Okay, thank you.
So our actual carryover would have been roughly 223 if we had not have had the 1% reduction of the 63,491. Basically, you would have added the 63,491 to the 159.5, correct?
Yes.
Yes. If there's no other questions, I'll move on into the expense side of this. Like I already mentioned, wages and salaries take up and benefits take up a pretty good chunk of our our fund allotment. So about, somebody did the math earlier, about 89% of our funding comes from the state. And a lot of that we then put towards salaries, wages, and benefits. I'm going to jump down to line 18 and draw your attention to facilities and support services, $2.3 million. That's a fairly fixed cost. That's our bill for renting, rent and utilities of the Kentucky History Center and the Old State Capitol. And then I'm going to draw your attention down to line 23, computer services, COT, and telecommunications at $313,000. That too is a very fixed cost. So when you add all those numbers up, we've pretty much taken up the general fund allotment to pay for items that are pretty much set by others. So we really rely then a lot on the foundation dollars and the earned revenue to cover our program support.
Sure.
The other personnel cost, kind of just to give you some ideas of what's in these numbers, is typically contract labor that we would hire, whether for graphic design work or for summer camps, or a deco staff, which we've utilized in the past to help cover some of our visitor services obligations.
Why is there the offset to a different line on two of those items in 2021, where our facility costs are on a different line and our computer costs are on a different line?
Yep. In the past, when we've reported back if you look back in the FY20, the rent, phone, and utilities included both computer services and the facilities and support services.
Okay.
And to give you all that picture of how much that obligation is just on their own, I wanted to pull them out separately. Okay. And we're going to start reporting them back out separately to you all that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The other big jump you'll see in there compared to last year was at services, and a lot of that services and commodities, a lot of that is in our marketing and promotions dollars. And there's some of that for exhibit development, the Keeneland Gallery exhibit, $80,000 that we would bring from the foundation over to support those.
Scott?
Yes, sir.
One thing, I realize benefit costs have increased considerably, but I'm still a little surprised to see that benefits is a larger number than salaries itself. That's correct?
Correct. The pension benefit, and Linda, you'll have to chime in if you can, but I believe we're factored in at 83.4 something percent.
Yeah.
And then, so on top of whatever the normal is, that's just for the pension benefit. So once you add in the others, I think we total out at somewhere around 112%.
Right at 113%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is retirement, FICA, health, and life.
Okay.
And I know that I believe the governor and other people have addressed this, and I've talked to this group before. This model of the way that this is set up makes hiring just about impossible. There is no hiring growth that we can do, because just for a front desk worker making $30,000 a year would cost the agency over $60,000. And that's just not there. We just can't do that. And so when we look back at that vacancy list, you see how, and when it's not full, we're saving money, but when, to add back into those priority positions, it's just hard to do, especially when we're talking, management and leadership positions. By holding open the deputy director position for as long as we did, and by not holding open actually the finance director's job for the last 6 months, saved us on to the tune of what, $75,000-$80,000 just over 6 months for that one position. So, and it's because of that benefits piece, but it makes just adding new jobs back in just that much more difficult.
Gosh.
So any other questions I can answer about our proposed budget?
And everyone needs to realize this is proposed, this is what we can adopt, but it is subject to numerous changes between now and the end of this year, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah, I had hoped to be able to be honest, we've been working like crazy, and I'm sure many of you have been in the same boat too, trying to figure out how to predict the new normal and the new programmings and things. And so, you know, the team that just reported in can attest, we're constantly trying what the new things are and then trying to how to apply that into this coming budget. So we really should have had this to you back in April, but it's just been that unknown. The second thing I didn't get done that I had hoped to do is what would happen if we were looking at a 5% budget cut. And just to figure that if we took a 5% budget cut right now, it really is all going to come out of personnel. It's just there's no other room for it. We're really backstopping our programming with foundation funding and our to make up for the lost revenue, and any other state budget cut would literally come through our personnel numbers.
Scott, this is Cynthia. One, I know we've talked about this from time to time. Can any of those positions be foundation supported positions? Is that possible at all?
I think it's definitely possible. And I know David's on the line and Doug. I think the challenge we run into is whatever money we have coming in from the foundation, do we direct that into personnel dollars to basically hire foundation employees as contract employees to do the work that we're doing? That absolves us of the pension benefit piece that we're doing there. But we're just getting legs underneath us to start, to stretch the foundation budget for program support. So it's where we want to direct the dollars.
Right. Okay.
Does that sound fair to you, David?
Yeah, we can take a look at that, Cynthia. The immediate thought I had there, we went through an exercise, including among others, the Ethics Commission 3 or 4 years ago, where regulations were being proposed that were putting some stringent limitations on the way that the foundation and then the Historical Society work together and collaborate, integrate, et cetera. Those were softened in their final form, but that would be one parameter to start with, I guess, in terms of determining the extent to which we could do what you're thinking. But within those restrictions, I think that's something we'd be happy to look and see if we could do. So we'll do that.
Okay, other questions? I don't want to rush anything here. I want everyone to feel comfortable to have any questions you may have. Please ask them. But we do still have a few items, and I know our meeting is running a little longer than we initially anticipated. So any other questions regarding the budget? Okay, if not, we need to have action to adopt this budget. It will give us an operating framework. And as me and Scott both said, and others, this is subject to significant change between now and the end of this fiscal year, depending on what happens. We are still in a state of flux regarding the COVID-19 situation and other matters regarding the state budget, where it's at. And of course, kind of unusual, but this coming January will be another budget year because of the 1-year budget adopted by the state. So we're not really sure where some of this will end up, but we do have to have a framework adopted to operate within. So is there a motion offered to adopt the budget that's been proposed? Overall, I think it's the best we could do with what we've got.
I move that we adopt the budget as proposed.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the budget submitted. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion? If there is none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you all very much. Scott and I have a few comments we wish to make on the next item regarding committees. Scott could not join us. In fact, one of our board members, and let's all say a prayer and hope Jennifer makes a quick recovery. But Jennifer herself is battling the COVID-19. And we hope that she I know it's a rough experience for anyone that has that, but let's hope that she comes out of this in great shape. And Jennifer, we're thinking of you. I don't think she's on the call with us today, but we'll let her know that. Scott, do you have a report for the nominating committee that she gave to you?
Yeah, there is no report.
Okay.
We have the nominating committee. So no, there's no report.
No report. I should have, I worded that wrong. I knew there was no report given you. Ask you, would you like to report on the steps we need to take to move forward?
Yes, thank you. You know, given the predicament of doing virtual meetings and it's the difficulty with doing committee meetings, so would like to propose that we had formed a nominating committee, and I set my note down somewhere. I know it was we'd formed the nominating committee before, but we need to get them active. So overall, I think Tommy and I had discussed of people's availability to conduct Zoom committee meetings. If people will be willing to do that so that we can reactivate not only the nominating committee, but the bylaws committee, bylaws review committee, and other military history museum committee, and the other committees that we were trying to get formed and activated through here. So that, I think that was the discussion item we wanted to kind of lay out there for folks.
Yes. Yes, we wanted to get your thoughts, anyone, member of the board, your thoughts on us trying to conduct Zoom committee meetings. We have several things we have to and need to discuss. The nominating committee being one, which is specified in our bylaws as to how it's to be done, the membership of the committee, when they are to meet and when they are to report. So this is not something we can lay off or put off for a future date. It has to be done. And so these meetings, of course, are considered open meetings. So we would have to advertise them. They would be just like this meeting. They'd be a meeting that would be held on YouTube, probably, or be available on YouTube if someone wanted to visit and watch. We'll just have to check into all the details on that to make sure we're in compliance with appropriate statutes and regulations. But are there any objections to holding some of our committee meetings via Zoom or virtual type meetings? Okay. Scott, it seems like we need to work on that a little more and try to get some meetings set up with folks, and maybe we can have you know, a monthly meeting every other month or something until we get some things resolved and move forward on something we need to look at.
So Teresa and I will get that information out to you. So the first one that we'll try to get going is the nominating committee. I did find my notes. Jennifer Brown is our chair. Tony Apro, Geneva Paris, and Tip Richmond are committee members. And I spoke with David Smith this morning to get a representative from the foundation board, as we've done in the past, to great success, to get their input on future members. Teresa will send out to the nominating committee as a reminder who our current board are, the current board, their terms of service, who will be rotating off. We also have to fill officers again for those roles. And yeah, and she can also remind us at that time what our deadline is. We have to essentially do a ballot. For those of you that are new to this process, we are elected, you all are elected by our membership. And so we have to send out a membership ballot in advance of our annual meeting in November.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anyone? Okay. If not, we'll move on. And I'm not sure if Secretary Berry is still been able to stay with us. He was with us, I know, for a period of time. His schedule is very tight, and I hope he is still with us, but we'll ask. Secretary Berry, are you still able to be with us on the call? Okay, possibly he has had to leave us. I would ask, is there anyone here representing the cabinet that would like to offer comment? Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet? Okay, good enough. Well, we just wanted to make sure, and we appreciate the support and the efforts put forth by the Cabinet Secretary and his staff and others working with through some of these challenging times. Next, we'll move on to the Kentucky Oral History Commission. John Wolford, you have some info for us there.
Yes, I do. And I did submit a sheet. I apologize for the formatting. It's really ugly, but the information's all there. The first part is about the CARES grant. The Oral History Commission got part of that CARES grant, and we met just recently and came up with all the information that we need for people to apply for it. We're hoping to get 4 or 5 viable applications, but it's open to everyone. And it's very important because what it's going to do is document COVID-19 in Kentucky. You know, lots of opportunities there, but it's also going to involve doing oral histories in unconventional ways through, you know, maybe Zoom, maybe other remote technologies. But already nationwide, there's plenty of information on how to do this. So we got this together, and as you can see, the important dates, the proposal submission deadline is just next month. So we're pushing ahead with that. We're hoping to get some really good oral histories, and the Kentucky Historical Society will be the repository for that. Another thing I want to mention is that we had to we have to amend the report on the grant review committee from last May. Last May, we submitted the report and we had the numbers wrong. And so we had a special meeting and we revised the numbers. And the outcome was that the top rated grant received full funding. Whereas the next 3 top rated grants, all very good grants, were received the rest of the proportional funding. And the last 2 grants, because they didn't meet contingency requirements, they did not receive any money. But all the granting money was used up, and those grants have been started already. And the ones that did not receive granting funds have been contacted and advised by Sarah Schmidt, the administrator, and we're hoping to get them to submit again in the future. Those are the 2 main things. The last items are that Sarah Schmidt has been on the task force for reopening KHS, and she's been involved in that. And she's also been involved as a host for the trivia night. She's working from home and she's involved in lots of other things as well, but those are the 2 things she wanted me to mention. That's it.
Okay, thanks, John. Any questions for John? Thank you so much. Appreciate all the work you do. Okay, next, and the Kentucky Museums and Heritage Alliance. Tressa?
Thanks, Joe. As you know, we missed our annual meeting that was supposed to happen in June. We hope to have a small virtual gathering of some sort with utilizing some of those presenters, but we've hit a bit of a snag in that Aaron Jetton, who is our VP, who I don't know if many of you all know, in our organization, the vice president takes care and coordinates the annual meetings. He's just taken a position in Montana. So he'll be leaving us in 2 weeks, which means his prep for the meeting, the conference in June, will fall to someone else. I'm hopeful that it's not me, but it probably will be. So we'll see kind of how that pans out for maybe the fall of this year, providing some type of small virtual conference. And then we're looking for 2021, if we can get back in person, we're hopeful. We'll go back to Paducah, which is where we're supposed to go this year. We have some business that we need to attend to, and we're not sure how we're going to handle doing elections this year, given that we normally do our elections at the annual conference. So we have the secretary and treasurer's positions are expired, and now we'll need to fill a VP position as well. So there's a lot of admin that we're having to deal with on a virtual, platform, which is not as easy to do as trying to get nominations for these positions in person. So in general, some museums have opened, some smaller museums have not yet. Many of these small museums operate with one staff, and many of their volunteers or docents are kind of in the high risk category. So some folks are being very, very careful about opening. We did put out some information culled from some of the national organizations on opening procedures for a variety of, the large museums and the very small house museums or local kind of community museums, since things are quite different for all the folks that we deal with. In general, we're trying to make do like everybody else is. But like I said, we have a few organizational things that we need to take care of in the near future. So that's basically kind of where we are.
Okay, thank you so much, Teresa. Any questions for Teresa anyone may have? Okay, thank you so much. You'll notice there's a couple of announcements. Remember and mark on your calendar that Friday, October 16th will be our next meeting. Whether it will be via computer or via in person, we don't know yet. We will see where things are. We hope things have improved. We can, but maybe not. We will know later on, and we'll certainly let you know. Also, the annual meeting will be Friday, November 6th, 2020. And of course, that's always held at the old state capitol. So again, mark that on your calendar, and we'll determine what happens and how it happens at a later date. Scott, that is all the agenda items we have for today. Are there anything additional you wish to tell
Yes,
the body?
sir. We have successfully resolved an audio problem, and Secretary Barry is on the call with us.
Oh, okay. Secretary, to have you with us, and we look forward to hearing any comments you wish to offer the group.
Scott and Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Scott told me he had to get me unmuted. Please do not tell my staff or fellow cabinet secretaries that I can be muted, or I'll never be able to talk again. I just wanted to thank you all. I've found your meeting today very interesting, and I appreciate the time that you spent on the budget, and not only understanding it, but knowing that the budget today may not be the budget tomorrow. Obviously, state government is facing an unprecedented budget crisis. Hopefully, there will be some CARES Act relief in the fourth round for state governments and local governments. If that's the case, that will make the difference between, as Scott talked about, those 16% budget cuts versus a 29% budget cut. But on the good side, we probably thought the hard part was closing state government and entities in the tourism cabinet. But as you all know, reopening had its own set of challenges. I wanted to just thank everybody for the good work that you all did in reopening the History Center and doing it in such a way that people who are attending feel like they're safe. I just, on behalf of the cabinet, appreciate that. And then also for hosting the governor's briefing in the old state capitol. Not only is it historically significant, but I think also, I know the governor likes to get out among the agencies instead of being just held up in his office or in the briefing room. And certainly those of us who watch those briefings, we're proud that an agency of the cabinet could be a part of that. So again, just from the cabinet, you're a very important part of the tourism effort in Kentucky. You're front-facing, you're a retail agency, but you also do a lot of behind-the-scenes work. We're very proud of you and just want to be of any help that we can be So I would just say you keep up the good work, and I hope everybody stays safe, stays healthy, stays hopeful, and I look forward to being able to get back with you all in person in a future board meeting. So thank you, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much, Secretary. We appreciate you joining us today. Thank you again. You know, Secretary Berry saying that he was muted there. I just have to tell you this very briefly. I remember being in Frankfort one time several years ago, rather large meeting. There was a couple of hundred people there. It was a luncheon meeting. I was asked to bless the meal. I got up, and as I always do, as on my way up, I said, Lord, give me words to say. I got up in front of the group. When I got there, I was totally silent. I could think of nothing to say. My mind was totally blank. I don't know what happened. So after a few minutes, I muttered something out and said amen and sat down. I went home that night. I told my wife, I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, I've never had this happen before. I said, I got up before a group. I said, on my way there, I asked, Lord, give me the words to say. And when I got there, I was totally mute. I could say nothing. I just stood there. And she said, well, is this a group that you speak in front of all the time? I said, well, yes, it is. She said, is this a group that you kind of run your mouth in front of all the time? I said, well, you know me. Yes, it is. She said, well, it's obvious what happened. I said, what's that? She said, your prayer wasn't answered. Their prayer was. So anyhow, just I throw. Are there anything else, Scott, any other words you wish to offer to the group?
Nope, just thank you all for your patience and support. I'm really excited that you got to meet the leadership team today, and I'm looking forward to getting them out and meeting with you all in future endeavors.
Great. Okay, folks, that is all we have for today. Is the motion offered to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
The motion has been seconded by Mary. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank all of you so much, and have a good weekend and stay safe.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice to see you at a distance.